Hello, welcome back to the channel, folks. Today, we are talking more Friday the 13th. That's right, I know. But let me tell you, this is way more interesting than talking about Jennifer Lawrence.
Hello, welcome back. We have a trifecta of articles to cover today, and we're not going to go through all of them. I just want to touch on the points and talk about it because it is Friday, and we are talking, of course, about Friday the 13th, upcoming prequel series, Crystal Lake, and this article, Crystal Lake fan poster imagines Friday the 13th prequels Jason. And a Crystal Lake fan poster imagines Friday the 13th prequels Jason Voorhees, both as a younger camper and the older iconic killer. And here we see half the poster. And I commented on this guy's post on Twitter, his tweet, as it were. Post is probably the wrong verbiage to use. Makes me sound like a boomer, but hey, I'm 42 and I don't really care. I prefer to say things properly than contemporarily, and in 5 years I sound like an idiot. In hindsight. So there we are. It's like saying, I don't know. Anyway, so a Crystal Lake fan poster portrays the iconic Friday the 13th slasher Jason Voorhees as his younger self in the upcoming prequel series. Following a lengthy legal battle over the ownership of the 1980 horror classic Friday the 13th, writer Victor Miller retained the rights to his script. Peacock announced Brian Fuller's Crystal Lake prequel show in October, which will see Miller executive producing. Series details are under wraps for now, but it will presumably follow Jason and Mrs. Voorhees during the tragic events that turned both characters into vicious killers. In response to the upcoming Crystal Lake series, a fan poster imagines the younger version of Friday the 13th antagonist Jason Voorhees as he could appear in the show. In a concept poster by freelance designer Nasty Pieces of Work, young Jason, wearing a Camp Crystal Lake shirt with the word camper on the back, stands in the water mirroring his older self underneath the water, clad with his signature hockey mask and machete. Series creator Fuller even commented on the design. Gorgeous. Check the poster below. We'll go down to that right here, and because I want to show this, because this is actually a really nice piece right here, and yeah, this is I liked it and I retweeted it. This is actually a very, very well done poster. I like it. I like the aesthetic, and I want to see Jason Voorhees in this show, both as a younger version of himself and the advanced stage he was when he was, his fully adult killing self. Of course I do. Now, I do want it to be conscious of the times it's working with. I think, honestly, if this were me, now, this is not me, but this is Friday the 13th Part 9 Reborn, which I'm working on, and have been for about a month now, trying to get everything right. I would take this and I would go back and forth. That's not what my treatment does for Friday the 13th Part 9. I know you're thinking Part 9. There was already a Part 9. Yeah, but the New Line movies were trash. Friday the 13th, it was Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X, and then Freddy vs. Jason. Those are garbage, okay? I don't care. Like, yeah, they're fun to watch, but they're trash movies. They're not in the original series. They don't fit. They're stupid. They really are. I'm just going to be flat out. They're fucking stupid. I hated everything about Jason Goes to Hell. I remember sitting in the theater and just at like 13 or 14 when that came out and just like disappointed. The entire movie just being disappointed. And then like my mom, like I remember because she came and picked me up and she's like, "What's wrong?" I was like, it wasn't good. I was like, Jason wasn't barely even in it. I'm like, he was jumping around, from body to body. I wish I knew then what I knew now about how this came to be and why it came to be, because Sean Cunningham wanted him out of the mask, which in retrospect was a really stupid move, but hey, what do I know? Jason could be in Crystal Lake. Well, I hope Jason's in Crystal Lake. Fans of the 1980 slasher classic Friday the 13th may already know that a young Jason appeared as a deformed boy with a drooping face in Mrs. Voorhees' Memories at Camp Crystal Lake and Alice's Nightmare. While Jason's deformity is hardly visible in the fan poster, due to the sun obscuring his face, it is logical to assume the character would look similar to his 1980 counterpart in Fuller's Crystal Lake series. After all, it is ultimately Jason's appearance that causes his fellow campers to torment him until his tragic drowning and sets the events of Friday the 13th in motion. Like, yeah. I always wondered about that. Like, how was he like fully on like mongoloid, or if original makeup artist Tom Savini returns, young Jason could look almost identical to the 1980 film version. But if he does not, Friday the 13th fans should still expect a familiar look. Unlike nasty pieces of works concept poster, however, Jason Voorhees will likely not mirror his future self in the series. The duality showcased in the design is a clever due to the nature of Jason's supposed death, because it foreshadows his path in life. But Jason was an innocent, mentally disturbed boy that developed bloodthirsty tendencies because of the circumstances and the death of his mother, which is fairly common knowledge. But I mean, some people, this is like reaching a new generation of fans, I'm sure, as well as older fans like myself. I mean, older, I'm 40, I'm only 42. It's not like I'm 80. So this is still relatively like fresh in the zeitgeist. We had the Platinum Dunes reboot, 2009. So, we're talking, 13 years ago. I think it's time for more but it's got to be done right. This is the thing. It's got to be an homage to the original series, or it's not going to resonate. People didn't want to see Jason as Leatherface. That's why it didn't go anywhere else. That's basically what they did to him. They made him into Leatherface, which was a huge mistake. Crystal Lake, 10 details from the Friday the 13th that need to be explored in the series. Friday the 13th is coming back with the Crystal Lake prequel series, which has the potential to explain some elements from the movies. Now, depending what elements those are and what movies they're from, I'm all for it. This was published a couple days ago, but like I said, it's Friday the 13th. I'm going to cover it because, look, my friends, I know you tune in for pop culture news, but at the same time, why do I want to talk about Jennifer Lawrence when there's 80,000 other channels talking about how stupid Jennifer Lawrence is? This is a quick side note. We know how dumb Jennifer Lawrence is. We know she's an idiot. I mean, she hedged her entire career on Harvey Weinstein and then wants to play like she's a victim after she willingly and knowingly let him use her so she could get ahead in her career and get roles, much like many of Harvey's victims did. And while they're still victims to a certain extent, they knowingly and willingly entered into that agreement. So let's not split hairs here. All parties are guilty in this. So I don't give a shit about talking about Jennifer Lawrence. I don't care. If you want to listen to somebody talk about Jennifer Lawrence, you're going to have to go somewhere else. We'll touch on it on a live stream maybe, but I'm not dedicating a video to it when there's so much other things that I enjoy that I could be talking about. Like Friday the 13th. Fans of the slasher subgenre can rejoice with Crystal Lake officially announced, reviving the Friday the 13th franchise from a long slumber. The new project is set to be a prequel series on Peacock taking place before the events of the original Friday the 13th film. It may not be what fans expected, but with Brian Fuller of Hannibal fame working on the series, there are many potential stories to tell, especially since the convoluted timeline of the movies has a lot of holes that can be filled with stories or details in the Crystal Lake show. This is murky territory because if you get into retconning things, you're going to alienate a lot of fans. You really are, because I have a feeling what they're going to do, and I'm nervous. I have cautious optimism for this show. I really want to be full on 100% optimistic, and I am trying to be. But given the state of modern entertainment, it's very difficult. Going back to Hannibal, the series, which was really good. I remember I watched a handful of episodes and thought it was really good. It was just one of those shows I just kind of fell off from. Whether it's Leatherface or Michael Myers, the horror genre usually explains where or how slasher villains get their iconic masks. With Jason Voorhees, however, he starts Friday the 13th Part 2 with the mask, and it's rather a basic sack with an eye hole, which was fine because he was living in the woods. Fans want to know whether he created and wore the mask right after disappearing from Camp Crystal Lake, or this was something he started wearing after the death of his mother. Crystal Lake could easily delve more into Jason's psychology, showing a similar tragic side as the titular villain of Phantom of the Opera. They could do that, but I don't want to see him become an anti-hero. Jason's never going to be an anti-hero, but I don't need to feel sympathy for him. The guy's a killing machine. Yeah, was what happened to him at the beginning wrong? Absolutely. But let's not forget. This man is a just absolute apex predator, all right? So I'm not going to feel sorry for him. The catalyst that sets off Pamela Voorhees, The most is that she claims the counselors of Camp Crystal Lake were not paying attention to Jason. This led to the other kids bullying Jason until he supposedly drowned in the lake. Now, the circumstances around that I would like to see because they kind of touch on it in a few little flashback scenes, but we never really get everything, which, for the movies they did, that was fine. That was fine because they play much better the way they were originally made. It's difficult to believe that the entire staff was preoccupied since counselors tend to be present at almost all times during camp. Crystal Lake could explore that maybe some were not present while others were more malicious and allowed Jason to be tormented by other campers. And there's always going to, that's a very good point. There could be a couple of these campers was Freddy Krueger at Camp Crystal Lake. I don't even want to think about this. I don't, because this is just stupid. Why would Freddy Krueger, okay, so this camp is in New Jersey. It's in New Jersey. Why would Freddy Krueger, who lives in Springwood, Ohio, be there? It doesn't make any sense. It was only hinted at in Freddy vs. Jason that Freddy was possibly involved in Jason's drowning as a child. However, in certain canceled scripts for the film, Freddy Krueger posed as a counselor when he was alive to claim for child victims. No, do not do that. That's a bad idea. The crossover movie, while it was fun in concept and to think about when you were younger and as a kid, and even to, hypothesize about now a little bit in, the fantasy slasher matchups, execution-wise, the movie was shit. Another one, sat in the theater and was like, at the time, I'm not going to lie, it was at the first it was kind of fun, but I'm just like, well, this movie didn't really do Jason any justice, And I've always been more of a Jason fan than Freddy. I mean, I like Freddy, don't get me wrong, Nightmare on Elm Street's great. But this concept, him being at Camp Crystal Lake, I would steer very, very clear of that. Don't even bring that in. Why does Jason look different between the movies? I love that in part 3 when he takes his mask off and he kind of it's almost supposed to be like a smile, at Chris. Most fans can agree that Jason Voorhees' unmasked look in Friday the 13th Part 2 is far from the iconic look for his first appearance. However, there is not even an attempt at proper continuity between Part 2 and 3 when it came to his design. Yeah, he looked way different. Like the eye was kind of the same, but the hair was gone. The mouth was different. Between films, Jason lost all of his long red hair, bulked up many pounds of muscle, and grew to be much taller. There is something that the 2009 reboot fixed by merging the two original designs for Jason together, and perhaps Crystal Lake could do the same. 2009 didn't fix anything. Let's stop it right there. That movie was Friday the 13th in name only. That's it. Which movies are canon? 1 through 8. The rest of them are shit. They don't belong in the series. They don't belong anywhere near it. They're fucking garbage, and they don't belong in the continuity. There's no denying the original timeline of Friday the 13th is a jumbled mess that jumped the shark several times and makes little to no sense when broken down. By the time Jason Goes to Hell comes about, the Friday's timeline is in the 2000s. Crystal Lake could easily fix this as it goes along. No, see right here, I don't want this. Similar to what recent Halloween movies did, Crystal Lake could and should find a way to make more solid and condensed timeline that satisfies fans while removing the muck that fans don't care for. See, this is a big assumption by this writer. Crystal Lake could even say that only the first 4 movies are canon. Mother!
2 hours later.
So they're going to so this author thinks that decanonizing 6, 7, 8 and on is a good idea. Wait, or 5, 6, 7 and up. 5, basically 5 through 8. Fuck the rest of them. We've already said those don't matter. Decanonizing 6, 7, and 8, 5 is stupid. Okay, so between 4 and 6, Jason is dead and buried. All right, he's dead and buried. Part 5, yeah, while fans didn't like it at first, it's still kind of a neat concept now looking back. Roy is the killer, all right? He imitates Jason so he can cover up for the fact he's killing all these things. Now, the circumstances around him putting Joey up for adoption, his estranged son, whatever, okay, and he's got a picture of him in his wallet, so he knows who he is. It's not bad. It's not bad. Really, it's not. And then the reawakening of Part 6, decanonizing 5 through 8, terrible mistake in my estimation. The timeline's not jumbled. I mean, if you're a complete fucking brain dead moron, the timeline is jumbled. It's not. Everybody's like, oh, he wasn't in Part 5, so it's just like Part 3 of Halloween. No, it's not. It was still set in the same universe. Michael Myers was a TV character in Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, which I love Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Don't get me wrong. I'm amped about this, and this is probably the only place in this video where I actually and this is what I'm talking about right here. This is why I'm nervous about this, because everybody's like, oh, it's going to be fine. He did such a good job with Hannibal. And then, you have people say, well, just the first 4 movies are canon and, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And, the rest of them just don't matter because it's so jumbled. It's like, are you brain dead? Like, literally, are you a brain dead, smooth brain fucking idiot? I hate humans. I really do. And this is why you can't have anything good. These people can't make a series. Like, why making a prequel is okay. While it's, I like I said, I like the concept, but at the same time, why don't you just pick up where part 8 left off? Jason's obviously supernatural. Something happens and it ends up back in Crystal Lake. Okay, this is what I'm doing with my movie, and I don't want to give too much away here, but it's dumb to even suggest that skipping out on movies that are actually good. Like part 6 is arguably the most popular entry in the franchise, away from the first one. And you're going to tell me that, oh, only the first 4 should matter. It's okay. After that, it doesn't matter. No. Whoever wrote this does not know shit about this franchise. I'm sorry, they don't. They don't know anything about it. Why didn't Jason just go back to his mother? The quickest answer is they needed a killer for Friday the 13th Part 2. But the question remains, if Jason didn't die at Camp Crystal Lake, why did he choose to live in the mountains instead of returning to his mother? Perhaps there was more going on than fans know. Pamela Voorhees claimed to love her son deeply, but maybe she was just as emotionally abusive as the children were. Showing the disappearance from Jason's perspective would help clear this matter. Did Pamela go after the children? To a degree, it's easy to see why Pamela Voorhees grew to hate the counselors for what happened to Jason. However, some fans don't understand why she didn't hate his bullies. It has been stated, as well as shown in movies such as Freddy vs. Jason, the kids were viciously cruel to Jason and accidentally caused him to drown. Pamela had already gone off the deep end and resorted to killing the counselors to avenge her child. Crystal Lake should explain why Pamela does not go after the main source of Jason's pain and torment, or perhaps fans will see her stalk and murder children as well. I'm very, very, very nervous about how they're going to do this, because I have a feeling, deep down I have a feeling they're going to muck this up somehow. They're going to muck this up, and it's going to end up being like the David Gordon Green Halloween, or Rob Zombie Halloween, or new Friday, or the new Nightmare on Elm Street, the new, what was the other one they just did? Hellraiser, which wasn't terrible, and it wasn't because of Jamie Clayton playing the Hell Priest. It was just the movie was boring. The new Critters series, they murder and massacre these things in the worst possible way, and then it's like, oh well, fans just must not want it anymore. It's like, no, they want it, but they want it done well, and you people are so caught up on agenda, checking boxes, and modern interpretations that you can't see the forest for the trees, and you ruin these IPs. That's the problem. In Friday the 13th Part 3, the iconic final girl, Chris Higgins, talks about how she was attacked by a man in the woods 2 years prior and it left her traumatized. While there is a huge mystery surrounding this, it is later revealed in the third act she was attacked by Jason Voorhees. This could be further explored with Crystal Lake, since it gives the impression that Jason was killing people around the lake even before he saw his mother's beheading. Whether this was his first time attempting to kill someone is something that only time will tell. Is Jason really a deadite? I'm just going to say no, please don't do that. I don't need to see Jason as a deadite, Jason versus Evil Dead, Ash versus Freddy versus Jace. I don't need to see it. I don't. I like Evil Dead, don't get me wrong, but Bruce Campbell and the Evil Dead and all that shit can just stay the fuck out of this franchise. Stay the fuck over where you belong. And that Necronomicon shit or whatever it was, and Jason goes out, get the fuck, magical daggers, come on, get the fuck out of here. Since Crystal Lake is meant to be a prequel series, this could be a solid finale to it. Jason finishes his evolution into the killer fans know and love by displaying how he manages to track down Alice Hardy, the final girl of the first movie. It's clear Alice does not live close to the lake, and Jason Voorhees didn't really know who killed his mother. While fans see him eventually track her down to her own house in order to exact his revenge for his mother's death, they would like Crystal Lake to possibly address this issue. No, I wouldn't. We don't need that. We don't need that addressed. Just leave it. Just leave it alone. This is the problem, as I said with prequel series, is they're going to go back and they're trying to, oh, well, we can do this. And it's like, yeah, there's things you can do, but you don't need to fundamentally change the story. It's like, just leave it ambiguous. That's what you need to do. Why a Friday the 13th prequel is a great way to return to the franchise. There are a few reasons Peacock's Crystal Lake prequel series may be a wise move for the Friday the 13th franchise. And why do they have to show an image from this garbage? Friday the 13th, epitome of franchise madness. Friday the 13th has an incredible cast. Betsy Palmer's portrayal of Mrs. Voorhees has earned her mention as a horror queen. The film was also exemplary in its ability to create the perfect atmosphere. The score from legend Harry Manfredini was incomparable, and the setting perfectly complemented the story. And regarding slasher quality, it was ultimately satisfying. Yes, it was. After the second installment, it was undeniable that Friday the 13th was the ultimate formulaic film. The Friday the 13th series of movies had cemented the hack and slash model. Voorhees became a bona fide horror legend. The character was so iconic, it would fuel a never-ending tale. Indubitably, Jason Voorhees had an indefatigable fan base, but many had tired of formula terror. Friday the 13th had 12 installments beginning in 1980, offering and concluding with the 2009 reboot. The announcement of the upcoming Friday the 13th prequel had some speculating, could this be a project that does more harm than good? Perhaps, but it might also be what the franchise needs. Crystal Lake promises a more expansive storyline. There's the problem right there. The prequel could be a glorious return to the franchise because Crystal Lake promises more in-depth story. There is much more of Voorhees' narrative that is yet to be told. Over the years and across installments, viewers have pieced together the backstory through revelation and fragments. However, Crystal Lake is being pegged to be more expansive than a general prequel. If done right, a deeper dig into who Jason is, his parentage, and the factors that led to his death could be instrumental in character building. Knowing what makes Voorhees tick and the factors contributing to a developed and beloved serial fiend could ignite a new love affair with the material. We are talking about setting the franchise up for a solid rebirth. And since the creators now have retained the rights to access all elements from variable films within the franchise, this type of depth is almost ensured. In fact, writer and showrunner Brian Fuller says nothing is off limits for Friday the 13th prequel series. And here, it's A24 Studios listed behind the series. Brian Fuller's writing, he was in charge of titles like Hannibal, Dead Like Me, and American Gods. And it says the timing's right for Jason Voorhees to return. They're absolutely right, it is. But let's take this thing home and we'll talk about my final thoughts on what a prequel could do. So the prequel series, Crystal Lake, could focus on a myriad of things that expand the story outward from the ground up, give us that parentage, that background on Pamela. Who is Jason's father? Are they going to introduce Elias Voorhees into this, as he was teased in various movies? It's supposed to be, and everything kept getting cut. I believe he's involved in a novelization and maybe a comic or something along those lines, some sort of graphic novel, if memory serves. But cinematically speaking, to me, is where this belongs. If they're going to do a prequel, I would rather it be a series than a film. The films should pick up after Part 8, which is why I'm working on mine from that jumping off point right there. Leave it ambiguously in the 80s. You don't need to bring it into the modern day. Make it make sense in the modern lens or use modern ideology in it, because that has no place in this story. This is a slasher story. This is about blood and guts and gratuitous nudity and a lot of violence and casual drug use. That's what made these movies fun. And I think a lot of people creatively lose sight of that when they produce these. And that leads to overproduction, which makes these movies kind of lose their luster, as it were. They're meant to be a little bit grainy, but not to the point where it looks intentional. And this story belongs in the 80s, and you can leave it forever there. There's so many ways you can do this, but like I said, that's the problem with having, people like me who've invested so much time and love into this franchise, and then you have TV people who are just like, they see it as just a paycheck. It's rarely do you get somebody that gets to make a passion project. They're all homogenized and just, paint by numbers, because that's what studios find safe, because they want those quick financial returns. So there you have it, folks. Those are my thoughts. I don't hate this idea. Like I said, I want to be cautiously optimistic going into it, even more so now, hearing some things that have been said and are being said regarding what it could, encompass as far as story and things like that, the characters and time frames. So I don't expect a full-grown Jason. That's all I said. Yeah, it would be great if they kind of went past and present. But if this is just in the past, just please make it make sense and don't retcon too many things. And this whole idea that the writer of the Screen Rant article said only having 1 through 4 count canonically. No, 1 through 8, and then after that you can make that the cutoff point. And that's it. Now it's your turn. Are you excited for the Crystal Lake prequel series? Are you a Friday the 13th fan? Do you regularly watch these movies the way I do? Let me know in the comments if you have any thoughts on this. I'd really like to hear them, folks. Thank you for the interactions. They do help us fight those pesky algorithms. What else helps us is you subscribing to the channel, dinging the bell for notifications. If you're so inclined to take it a step further, join as a channel member. Kazooian's $2.99, Harvey Wakuian producer tier, $4.99 a month. After the first of the year, the member streams for Kazooians and Harvey Wakuians will be moved with the schedule of the live streams until after the main live stream is over as a bonus to keep the conversation going for my channel members. That's it, gang. That's all I got. I'm Etep Wakuian of The Place to Be Reviews. I've been here with all of you. If I don't see you, have a great day, pleasant tomorrow, and I'll catch you on the next one.
It's better to burn out than to fade away. I could do this all